To Know Christ, a television ministry of the Lutheran Church of Peace in Platteville, Wisconsin. Here's your host, Reverend Jeff Pedersen.
Well, today our lesson is Psalm 46. Psalm 46 is a rather popular psalm, one that people oftentimes ask me to read. And it is an important psalm. It is a psalm of, where we see God as our refuge and our strength. He's the one that we turn to, especially in times of trouble. And so I'm going to read Psalm 46 at this time. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Though the waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy city where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in an uproar. Kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice. The earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see the works of the Lord, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. When we think about a refuge is a safe place. When I think about people who are seeking refuge, it oftentimes means that, for instance, in a land where there is war, where there's genocide, you have people who are leaving their land and they're going to another nation where they seek refuge. I know that oftentimes Egypt kind of gets a bad name in the Bible because, after all, that's where where God's people were. They were slaves in Egypt, and God freed them from Egypt. But really, that's kind of one black blemish upon a nation that really has been so kind and gracious. They've been that nation that has been a refuge for so many people in biblical times. That's how God's people ended up in Egypt in the first place, is because they were seeking refuge there. And it was a nice place for them to live for hundreds of years. The people of Egypt were very good to God's people. It was just toward the end, when there was a new regime of pharaohs that came in that didn't remember who Joseph was. And that's when the problems arose. When King Herod was trying to kill the baby Jesus, it was an angel of the Lord that went to Joseph and said, you must take your wife Mary and the baby Jesus, and you need to seek refuge. Go to Egypt. Because after all, where you're living, it's not a safe place right now. So you think about all of the times in history, in biblical history, where people were going to Egypt for refuge. But we also think about even today where people go there to Egypt for refuge. And so we've always been very thankful for this country. But there's also been other places where people have gone when life becomes so troublesome in their life or in their land that they have to flee. When I was on a study trip in Denmark, it just so happens to be that that's where a lot of my nationality came from, was Denmark, and I still have relatives I have relatives that live in Denmark because as my grandfather and 3 of his brothers came to the United States, there was 1 brother and 2 sisters that stayed back in Denmark. And so I have got second cousins living in Denmark. But I remember as I was visiting with one of them, they were so concerned saying that we have now Arab people living here. And some of them are even Muslims. And they were really concerned, and I just simply said to them, I said, you need to relax. I said, these people are here not because they want to hurt you, but because in the land that is their home, there is so much war going on and so much genocide that they have to leave. And right now they're just trying to find a place somewhere where somebody will welcome them in and to be kind to them, to say, we're not here, this is a safe place for you. You won't be hurt here. And you can stay here as long as you want. I mean, that's all they are looking for, is just a safe place, hopefully where people will be kind to them, because they are full of fear. Refuge. When a natural disaster happens to a city or an area, sometimes people will seek refuge because where they are living now, things have been destroyed to where they don't have a house, they don't have a place of work. Everything is so destroyed that at least for temporarily they need to go somewhere else. I think about after Katrina, when so many people were displaced in New Orleans, but yet how the city of Houston opened up their doors to these people to say you can come and you can stay here as long as you need to. And I always think of the people of Houston as being such a wonderful example to say that we are a neighbor to you. We recognize that you people of New Orleans right now, that your lives have been so disruptive, that there's been so much pain as a result of what has happened, that we want to at least help you out until you can get your life back in order again. Or sometimes if we are a young person that we are bullied on the playground, where do we seek refuge? We may seek refuge as we see the person on the playground, the teacher, the recess monitor, that we can go and stand next to that person knowing that this is a safe place. Anywhere else on the playground, I'll probably get beaten up, but if I stay right here, it's a safe place. And so do we see that whether it is a place or a person, that we're looking for a safe place and a safe person? And that's where King David is saying that God is our refuge and strength. In other words, He is this safe person. To know that when we are in the presence of God, that we can find peace and rest. That He loves us so much, not just today, not just tomorrow, but forever. And so as we look at our churches, so oftentimes we at least call the place where we worship as being the sanctuary. To say that, yes, in life, the world out there can be very troublesome. The world out there can bring a lot of hurt. But to come into this sanctuary, that you are in the presence of God, the God who loves you so much, and you are in the company of the saints, to know that you have caring people here, people who are going to love you, people who are going to support you, people to say, hey, lay your burden down. We are here to help carry the load. And basically, well, as the church, we are a collection of these people, that we are here helping one another, not like anybody comes to church saying, well, I don't have any problems. I don't have any worries today. No, we all have worries. We all have concerns. We all need to go into the sanctuary. But that's where we lean on one another, and that's the basis of community, to say where you are weak, this day, God is strong. Where you are weak this day, that in the company of the saints, that there are people here who've got the strength to help you in this day. And so we need to find out, where are those sanctuaries? In times of distress, where do we go? Who can we count on? To say that I can always count on my church. I can always count on God. I can always count on my good neighbors, that they are always there. I was living in a community in northern Wisconsin that was hit by a tornado. And what a blessing. Nobody was killed. There were some people who were injured, but it just gutted out the center of town. But I remember in the moment when this happened that our church, the church that I was serving, that was just like a block away from the disaster zone, it pretty much was unscathed. There was just minimal damage. But the structure was there, whereas so many churches were destroyed. So many of the main buildings were destroyed. But our church, that what I did, unfortunately, as I worked with the church, a few years before that, saying we want this to be a place where the Red Cross can come and set up shop. But in that moment of distress, just shortly after, I opened up the church, so that people whose homes now have been destroyed and apartments, that they have a place to be able to go and at least be. And then I got a few other people that I could count on that live close to the church to say, come and help me. It wasn't long before one man he brought over his generator. And he had other things that we could use to get electricity and lights going on. And we had a gas stove, so we were able to make meals for these people. And then some of the people that came over to help, they went up and down the neighborhood that wasn't destroyed, asking people, do you have anything that you can donate as we're trying to put together a makeshift shelter? People were giving mattresses and towels and just all kinds of things. And within no time at all, we had a place of refuge for these people to come, where they were being fed and taken care of. And it was just really phenomenal, the people that stepped up and came forward during this time to say that God is our refuge and strength, that you can count on us as a church, that in that desperate need, we will be there for you. And then I remember in the middle of the night, the Red Cross came in and set up shelter. And helped so many people. And, not only the Red Cross, but I remember also the Salvation Army. What a great job that they did. And so even though this has been 11 years ago, I still get emotional as I think about this time. And just how when people are hurting in desperate situations, they need a place to go. And there needs to be at least a few caring people around to say that we are going to take care of you in this moment of distress. Verse 2, therefore we will not fear though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. We always know that the deep blue sea is always going to be there. And as we look at the mountains, we'd say if there's one thing that will always be there, it's kind of representing the foundation of the world. It's those mountains. As I've lived in the Midwest most of my life, that's me. I don't know if I've missed out on something or if I've been deprived, but we really just don't have those big mountains around here. So I've been very fortunate that I've had the chance to go to Colorado, Montana, Utah, and to see some of the big mountains there. And I've also been blessed and fortunate to have, for instance, gone to Switzerland and have seen beautiful mountains there. They are very majestic. Beautiful to see these mountains. These mountains that have been there, I'm sure, since the beginning of time. And will be probably there until the end of time. But yet, saying that the mountains, They fall into the heart of the sea, and that the waters roar and that the mountains quake. Well, the thing of it is that there's never been a time where people haven't been in distress. There's never been a time where people haven't needed to find a place of refuge. And there's never been a time where people have questioned that the very things that you can count on, the very foundations of the world, that they can be shaken. And so we look at land and we look at sea. And here again, just looking over the past few years, there's been some awful tsunamis that have hit coastlines, and where so many people have been killed, and so much has been destroyed. And we look at earthquakes and how the very mountains shake. But we think about what could bring an end to a mountain. And I asked that question to a bunch of students. I asked, well, what could ever destroy a mountain? And they were saying, well, a nuclear bomb. We gotten to that point now where, as you read this psalm throughout history, well, what could make the mountain? Well, an earthquake. But how about a nuclear bomb? Could that destroy the mountain? And there's so much concern now to say that we have it within the power to be able to destroy ourselves. And so as we read this, we can't say that this is far-fetched. The very things that you can count on as far as the sea and as far as the mountains, that is all now in question. Yeah, the sea does roar, and we've seen examples of that. As we think about various earthquakes, and as we think about hurricanes and tornadoes, and how when these happen, and here again, having gone through it, but also going and helping, going to places where there's been hurricanes, like I've led mission groups down to help the people down in the Gulf Coast, and I've also had mission groups go to help the people of Joplin. But initially, when a storm hits, like a tornado when it hits your city, at first you just feel kind of invigorated, saying, I survived this. But then day after day after day, when there's no electricity in the house, the lights don't come on, and as you drive or walk uptown and you see all of the destruction, and you see how it's affected lives in such a adverse way, that pretty soon a depression comes and settles in amongst the people. They say, I'm tired of seeing the devastation all around me. But yet in that depression, that day by day, you just kind of put one foot in front of another to say that yeah, we need to get out there and work again today. We need to get out there and clean up. We need to work with people who are displaced right now. What are some of the aid that these people are eligible for? Where can they go? You got to just keep moving on as hard as it is day by day, cleaning things up and then planning and then rebuilding. But you look at the power of God and you look at the power of humanity. I think about a big snowstorm, when a big snowstorm hits and all of the heavy equipment, I'll see such powerful equipment, diesel engines, hydraulics, very thick steel that this equipment is made out of, and it's able to remove the snow from a parking lot, and pretty soon where they pile the snow, it becomes like a little mound. And I look at just all of the work that is taken and all the power of human invention to be able to move that snow. But yet in the spring, when the heat comes, it's just a matter of a couple of days and the big mound of snow is gone. And so as powerful as these human inventions are, as powerful as this machinery is, that what is it compared to the power of God? A few minutes of a tornado will cause years now of work for people with all of their heavy equipment. Or as I look at the hurricanes, earthquakes, a few minutes, a few hours, the power. But yet it takes years to clean up and to rebuild. And so we may think that we're so powerful as people. We may think that we have everything under control, but yet in relationship with God, we are so weak. And in verse 4, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in an uproar. Kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. Now, the city of God is Jerusalem. That's right away we're starting to think, well, a river is a good thing. A river brings life. A river brings water, commerce. Our goods are being able to be transported up and down a river. I think about, for instance, the city of Dubuque. How the Mississippi River has brought life to this city for so many years. But as I think about Jerusalem, I think, what city, what river is there? That the psalm writer is talking about, that whose streams make glad the city of God. Well, there's a couple of things. Is that one would be Hezekiah's water tunnel. You had the Gihon Spring outside of the city. That was the people's water source. And as the Assyrians were going to go in an attack, it was King Hezekiah that got his engineers together saying, we have to do something. We have to get our water running into the city, because if we don't, the enemy army will be able to surround us and separate us from our water source, and we will have to surrender. And so the engineers worked very hard, and the workers, as they started chiseling a tunnel from the Gihon Spring from inside of the city. And so they worked until they finally met. And so the water now would run into the city. And that would make glad the city of God, because now their life source, the water, is coming into the city. And as they were attacked by the Assyrians, they were not able to destroy Jerusalem, and that was its saving grace, was building that tunnel. And I actually have walked through that tunnel, and you have to be sure to have a flashlight, but it's really something to be able to walk through King Hezekiah's water tunnel. But more importantly, there's a river whose streams make glad the city of God. And I've mentioned King Hezekiah's water tunnel, but more importantly, that there's a stream of God's love and grace that is flowing down from heaven. And that stream is our Lord Jesus Christ. He is the salvation of God. He is the one who makes glad the city of God. And that love now has entered into Jerusalem, but now it has streamed out into all of the places of the world. So we all may seek refuge and strength in our Lord Jesus Christ. That He, as we read in John chapter 10, verses 27 through 29, that He is the good shepherd, that He keeps us in the very palm of His hand, that Jesus is the one who's laid down His life for us, that we may receive His salvation. And so that we as a church, where this stream of life has come to us, that we know that we are not to be like the Dead Sea. Like the Jordan River flows into the Dead Sea, but there's no outlets in the Dead Sea. And so the water has become so saline. It's got the greatest salt concentration of any other body of water in the whole world. Well, we don't want to be like that. We want to be where God's grace, His blessings come to us, but we want them to flow now in and through us, so that we may be a blessing to others, so that we can say this day that love is flowing like a river. Peace is flowing like a river. Grace is flowing like a river. Joy is flowing like a river, because it's flowing to you and to me, and that it's flowing in and through us, so that we may be these rivers now of God's love, joy, peace, and grace. Come and see the works of the Lord, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. So in other words, the Lord is a great king, and we see where there is war. Like some people say, well, look at all the war in the Old Testament. But yet, what God is really working to do is to cease war, to bring peace. And that is what a great ruler will do. A great king, a great president, is that they are always working to make war cease. And then a great leader is always one who has got the diplomacy, the ability to be able to make friends of our neighbors. To take nations and to say that we are not going to war against each other, but rather we are going to work for peace. Because that's always the best way, and that's what brings strength to all nations. And so what a blessed leader it is that can always dissolve differences and who can always work for peace. That's always the strongest leader. Any leader can bring a nation into war. You know, it doesn't take any power or strength or wisdom or intellect to do that, but it always takes a great leader with a lot of intelligence and a lot of wisdom and a lot of love to be able to build relationships with. And that's what God is always wanting us to do. Is He says, I've come to bring peace with you. And so it's out of that peace that I want you to be peacemakers. And He says, be still and to know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. To be still before the Lord. You know, if we are going to receive the peace of God, we must be still before the Lord. We must take that time to listen to God's voice. And God's voice may not come in a big earthquake or in a hurricane or in a fire. I mean, yeah, all the devastation, but yet, like He did for Elijah, that He will come with that small voice, that whisper, that we may be at peace and to know that God is our refuge. He is that fortress, that we may always find our shelter in Him. Well, thank you so much for joining me this day. God bless you. And join me again next week as we come to know Christ.
Those who make a donation to KFXB of $25 or more will receive a copy of Pastor Pedersen's latest book, Christmas Ponderings.